Hey guys, it's Penelope in London, and I just thought bring up a chart and have a look at what's going on because we have currently we've had Mars, we've just had it's in opposition actually to Saturn at the moment, and the restriction and the feelings of restriction and some internal stuff that's going on in each of us. I'm sure we've all been feeling it in one way or another and looking outside us collectively, but there's other things going on that I want to point out. I'm just going to grab my pointer. Let's see here. Okay, so spotlight. So here you can see this is a UK chart. It's GMT time up here, which is not, should be British summertime, but anyway, we'll go with this one. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you up my chart briefly on AstroSeek so that you can have an idea of how you would look at what's going on for you. So for me, the sun is actually in my 8th house. So the sun is in Cancer at the moment. We've got Mercury currently in the sign of Gemini, and that came out of retrograde over a week ago. We've got the North Node in Gemini. These are asteroids here. I won't go into that, but we got Lilith as well, Black Moon, true Lilith, this one. Then we have Uranus in Taurus. We also have the moon currently in Aries, and we have Chiron in Aries. Also, the moon crossed over within the last, so many hours. It crossed over Chiron, but we've also got at the moment, we've got Chiron conjunct asteroid Lilith. Now, this is interesting to me because Lilith is to do with our shadow. So Lilith in astrology was cast out, asteroid Lilith, she was, the mythology is she was cast out of the Garden of Eden. She didn't want anything to do with patriarchal rule. So when we consider the symbolism here, and then we've got also that it's hit the sign of Chiron, which is the wound. It's the wound that we have to learn to integrate through our lives. All of us have been wounded in one way or another. Some of us had early trauma wounding, and many of us are wounded as adults. A lot of wounded adults walking around, addictions, codependency, sadness, emotions. People are on medications for it. We've, fear and anxieties. So this is, Chiron in Aries for the coming years is heal thyself first. It's healer, heal thyself. Because as we integrate what we need to integrate, our own personal story, then we become a life giver to others. When we're healing that wound, we can also be a life giver to others. So for instance, we can be going through trauma, but we can, or have had trauma, but going through the healing in our expression of our own healing, we're actually helping other people. And whether we think we are or not, a lot of us have been shut down to say, don't tell anybody anything. But we see, through social media, through Zoom meetings, people have, there's so many meetings going on online. And what's very interesting, I have a female meetup that I do twice a week. We do, on the inner child on Wednesdays, and then on Saturday we talk about the idea of codependency and people pleasing, and not wearing a mask in order to keep people in our lives, or not, saying what we think, because we learn behavior where we've been made to feel inferior, or that where we seek validation outside ourselves. So Lilith, was really like tossed it to the side. She said, I'm not doing this. In the mythology, you can look that up for yourself. So I'm going to push this chart forward in a moment, and we'll see where it's going. We've got Neptune in Pisces. It's retrograde since the 26th, I believe, of this June, 26th of June. And then we've got Jupiter is retrograde. It's moving back into Aquarius. And we've got also Saturn retrograde, and it's going back to 6 degrees. And we've got Pluto retrograde. I think it's going back to maybe 23, 24. I haven't looked, but that will, and then they'll all move forward at the end of the year. But we do have later in the year, we have Uranus goes retrograde later in the year. We've then got the South Node is in Sagittarius. So it's what we're leaving behind, but also integrating. We don't just, let things go. Like there's talk in spirituality that you just let it go, you get on with your life. It's not so simple. It's integration. We can't, just let things go and leave things behind. And when we do, that's because we've integrated it. So if anybody tells you to let you go of your trauma, know that you can have the conversation with them that really that you're at the integration stage, because to heal trauma, we need to healthy anger, we need to grieve. There are many stages we go through and we're all different. So the next thing is that we've got Mars in the sign of Leo, and we've also got here Venus, and Venus is going to be crossing over Mars. I wonder what sort of activation will be going on with that, because there's sensitivity, and maybe we will feel a bit raw around our sensitivity. I haven't looked at that aspect actually, so that's something I'm learning every day with astrology. So when we see this, we've got currently right this moment, and we have this trine to Chiron, to the almost the south node, in fact the south node there, and also it's hitting Mars. So there's some, and that would be in the sign of, that's a fire trine actually. So a fire trine, again, I'm learning, so that would be something, we can dig deeper on the definitions. Then what we have some nice trines from Chiron to Mars. Mars is our direction where we're going forward. We know that Chiron is the wounding, integration. We know that in Aries, it's to do with self, first sign of the zodiac. Then we also know that in Mars, in Leo, it's like it wants to, be the king of the castle and the creativity and the fun and the joy. Leo, the sun, the ruler is the sun. But with Mars, and with this opposition, we have restriction. We've been restricted. So we might be feeling the restriction, but then we've got this T-square that's been going on, that was going on here, which meant that what we're really looking at, you can see it there. So I've got a lot of lines on this aspects, because I've used other asteroids and things, so it bumps up what you see in the central the center of this wheel. The moon is our emotions, gone over the sign of Chiron. Not the sign, it's gone over Chiron in Aries, or both in Aries. And then the North Node in Gemini is about communication locally and how we're dealing with each other. And we're stuck, many of us, even if people have had what they've needed to have to travel, they still can't travel. So people are very much stuck where they are at the moment globally. There's very little overseas travel going on. Mercury will continue to move through into Cancer in the coming days. But what I'd like to do now is just show you, go a few days ahead. I'm going to animate this chart, and I'm going to reshare screen to make sure I'm showing it to you. Okay, so if I go forward and come out of Spotlight, so if I go days forward, so let's look where Mercury is heading, because Mercury is going to square Neptune. So it's already in orb, and you may find yourself being a bit confused and a bit dazed, because Neptune is beyond this realm, beyond the five senses, and it's what's unseen. It's the unknown. It's when we sleep, we dream. It's very Neptunian. It's also to do with the ocean and water and flowing and, space-time reality and such like. So Mercury is to do, it's already squared actually. It already did square Neptune when it was at a degree, and then it retrograded back, and now it's going forward again. So it's already done this square. And if I go forward, we're going to see, when it hits 23 degrees here. So you can see this is then a square to Neptune. And at that point, Venus, this is on the 6th of July, and Venus is still not crossed over the sign of not the sign, Leo, the Mars. There you go. You can see how this Neptune is already looking, because we can look at things that we always look at or think about things, and there can be a sense of confusion or untruths and white lies going on with this Neptune Mercury, but it's not particularly intentional. It's just that we're a bit out in space, so to speak. So we have to watch ourselves, you know, with what we're saying to other people. We're better off focusing on things that are more dreamlike at the moment, like, you know, doing something creative, music, poetry, rather than doing serious things that need to be dealt with. So when that hits, that will be the 6th of July, and that will be 6 p.m., around 6 p.m. London, UK time. This is what it's showing, but it will be different depending on what country you're in. So if I go forward, that's 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. And then it moves into the sign of Cancer. And then it's 7 degrees off. So it's now separating. Okay. And at that point, we'll just look at this Venus move over Mars. So that's 18 degrees and 19. So we'll go a day ahead. And there you go. Then we've had, at that point, we've had Venus move over Mars. And again, I would like to, I think the aspect Venus conjunct Mars is what we would be looking at. So you see the beauty of astrology. I've been doing it for years, but we know that Venus is our inner needs and Mars is the way we're going forward. But that when that Venus is here, it's called a balsamic phase. It's balsamic phase, and this means that it's a closure of something, and then a new cycle is beginning. Mars is the slower planet. Venus is faster than Mars, and when it crosses, it will take 224 days to do that cycle again. So we've got a new cycle of our needs and direction. So if I go, I'm just going to look on an app here that I've got and see if I can see something before I show you my chart. So the current chart, and we've got, let me see, we're also going to have Venus opposition. We've got the Venus opposition to Saturn as well, actually. This is, don't look at this chart when I'm saying that, because I'm talking about today's chart. It's in a weak, weaker opposition. And then we've got Mars square Uranus, which basically Mars is our energy and drive, and Uranus is the revolution. And with Mars square, there is a, you know, a rush, like there's a feeling of like electricity in the air of, you know, excitement, but also it can also mean that we're careless and, you know, sudden actions could cause outbursts and stuff like that. So when we're out and about, the best thing to do is just that, be conscious of this stuff. And, you know, if you see people going a bit like off the wall or crazy, you just move away from them. You know, you don't have to be involved in these things. But also this can affect, you know, this is to do with Taurus is to do with earth, and it's to do with volcanic eruptions and food and all sorts of things. So we, you know, we don't know exactly in astrology what exactly something means, like exact, some people may claim they do, but overall it's we look, what we're looking at is the idea of what does something mean, and then drawing, extracting and integrating the chart. And the Saturn square to Uranus is, you know, we know that Saturn is restriction and that it's structure as well. It's also our structure. And you, again, the planet of revolution is Uranus. And the dynamic here is that we need to break free of the old, but we're being slowed down by, we've got outworn rules and traditions, and we're being slowed down by this situation. What's going to go on, this Saturn will go back to 6 degrees, and then it will actually, when it goes forward at the end of the year, it's going to kick in with that square again. So it's worth knowing. And although, you know, we might have the idea that we're going to do our own thing and we're just going to do our own thing, that Saturn is not having any of it really. It's restricting us. And with the Mars, there's a push-pull. So what else can I tell you? We've got Mars trine in Chiron, which is quite beautiful. So, and again, this is today's chart. In fact, what I may do, if I come back to today, because that's nearly 2 weeks ahead, if we look at today, we can see that Mars here is trining to the Chiron. And Mars is our energy and Chiron is our wound. And so this is healing, the acknowledgement of concealed traumas. So we're acknowledging why we've been traumatized. So we might see things at the moment and we're trying to figure out, you know, how can there be so much unconsciousness in the world? But this starts with us. So, you know, Mars can also be, you know, anger, and it can be frustration, but it's also can be impulsive. But with a trine, it's a gentler energy. So maybe we can be more of an observer with this. There can be enhanced actions and things can arise that we've shut off before now, that we've kept, down and shut and whatever. I have seen a few things actually in the news in the last few hours or the last couple of days that have disturbed me to do with the feminine. When we look at asteroid, the feminine is in all of us. It's not just in the feminine, the masculine, the anima and the animus, as Carl Gustav Jung put it. So it's very fascinating that we've had this aspect, because I've been feeling very touchy about a few things I've seen in the news, mentioning nothing specific, but to do with the feminine and the abuses that go on. In fact, I can think of 4 things in the last 24 hours that have triggered me a bit. And it's in my awareness, I realize that I have no control over these things outside myself, but I do have control of how I treat other people and how I interact. So with this, we're looking at the wounding with that Chiron trine to Mars. And if we can look at this as well, we've got that Venus is then going to be trining into Chiron as well. So I'll make another video in a few days. But as we look at our wounding, and with the trine, we can come to, although things have felt maybe very painful and difficult for us, and we've got patterns of behavior that are unconscious, it can maybe bring some consciousness to it, which helps us to come to self-acceptance on certain situations, which creates deep healing. And when we're dealing with each other, this is really useful, because as we're doing the healing and we're showing that, we become role models for other people. The moon is also, let's see here, we're looking at the moon and we're looking at Pluto. So the moon is going to be squaring Pluto later today. You've got 25 degrees. Let's go hours ahead. So really, I find astrology comforting, because it's basically what we're feeling is seen on the chart. So this will be around midnight UK time that we'll have, just after midnight, the moon will be in a square to Pluto, and Pluto square moon, is always a bit of a tough energy. I have that aspect at birth. So the moon is our emotions and Pluto is about transformation. So with a square, there can be some tension, but again, we can transmute it. So, again, it's about being conscious of what these things mean. So when we look at a chart, then we're talking to our inner world. And when we share charts with others, we're sharing our inner world with each other, and we're helping each other to overcome stuff. So with the Mars Pluto, which is happening later, the moon symbolizes our awareness and Pluto is transformation. And when we have this square, there's a potential for conflict. There's conflict around our emotions, because Pluto is unconscious, and also the moon is part, there's some unconscious stuff going there with the moon as well. And we're all looking at our deeper needs later today, and our compulsions, and there can be interpersonal difficulties at these times, and a depth of feeling, we can be more sensitive, but in that sensitivity, we can have profound healing. Yeah. So let me show you my chart briefly before I pop off. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on my chart, but I'm just going to show you, if you haven't looked at astrology before, how you would do this. So this is my chart with the transits. Get my spotlight. So you can see on the inner wheel is my chart. You can go to Astro Seek and you can get your own chart. It's astro/seek.com. Put your time, date, place of birth in. You do need your time if you want to know where these houses and your rising sign are. And then what you can see is that this is my, I'm going to focus on the outside of the wheel. This is my inner wheel. But if I focus on what's going on, the sun is currently in my 8th house and it's moving through my 8th house. And my 8th house actually goes up to ends at Leo here. You can see this line here because I've got 27 degrees Scorpio rising. And when I look at the moon, or not the moon, the sun, I know that it's going to be concentrating on, how I'm dealing with my financial life and then with other people. And it's where we merge resources with others as well. It's the 8th house. I've also got just here, Venus will be leaving my 8th house in a few days. See there, Venus, and Mars has just moved into my 9th house, and that line there, you can see. So you would look at your chart to see what it's doing. My Mercury is in my 7th, my North Node is moving on to my descendant at some point, but not quite yet. Right down here is for me, this is my descendant, 27 degrees. So that node by the end of the year will be moving into Taurus. So I think I will leave it there, but I will tell you, I've got Jupiter, look, you see here, it's swinging just at it's retrograde, and it's going to go back to 22 degrees. You can't see on this chart, but I have Lilith, true Lilith, which is the resolution to the asteroid Lilith, 22 degrees Aquarius. This is Black Moon Lilith, and true Lilith is also part of the trio. In fact, there's 4 Black Moon Liliths, but I won't go into that. Could be very deep work on the shadow. And then you can see that my Neptune transit is actually on my IC at the moment as well. So there you go. I'm going to leave it there. And you got any questions, anything you see there that you want to discuss, then you leave some comments below the video. Catch you later. Thanks for watching.